Conditions for tayammum 202. There must be a valid excuse for performing tayammum. This excuse is the actual or legal inability to use water. That is, water must be at least 1 mil, 4,000 steps, away from the place where the person who will perform abdest or ghusl is located. In this case, water is considered to be truly unavailable, or if water is available, but one fears, based on experience, that using it will cause illness, aggravation of illness, or prolongation of illness. Or if an authorized Muslim doctor considers its use harmful, then tayammum is performed, because it is considered that water is not available. According to the Malikis, if a qualified Muslim doctor is not available, the opinion of a qualified non-Muslim doctor is sufficient in this matter of tayammum. Water is also considered to be unavailable in the following circumstances: if there is a danger to life, property, honor, or trust, when using water that is close by, if the water found is not enough for abdest or ghusl, if the water found is used for abdest or ghusl, and it is known with a strong probability that oneself, one's companion, or an animal in one's company will perish from thirst, the absence of tools, such as a rope and bucket to draw water from the well, the water available is only enough to remove impurities, and nitrogen monoxide more water is available. Fear that if the existing water is used for abdest or ghusl, the Eid and funeral prayers will be completely missed. However, if it becomes clear that one can only attend part of these prayers, or if one is the guardian of the deceased and knows that they will be waiting, it is not permissible to perform tayammum, AGAIN. It is not permissible to perform tayammum for prayers that can be made up for which there is a substitute, solely out of fear of missing the prayer, such as Friday and other timely prayers. Because if one cannot catch up with these, the noon prayer is performed instead of Friday prayer. If one cannot catch up with the regular prayers, they are made up 203. Intention must be present when performing tayammum. That is, when performing tayammum, one should intend when placing one's hand on the soil for tayammum, or when wiping one's face with the soil that touches one's hand. They must do sulfur monoxide with the intention of purifying themselves from impurity, praying, or performing an act of worship that is not permissible without purification. Prayer cannot be performed with tayammum taken without such an intention. Merely intending to perform tayammum is not sufficient. Accordingly, if someone who is unable to find water and is without ablution performs tayammum with the intention of holding the Qur'an or entering a mosque, their prayer performed with this tayammum is not valid. Because although it is not permissible to touch the Qur'an without wudu, doing so is not an act of worship. The purpose is to read the Qur'an. It is permissible to recite the Qur'an from memory without wudu. Entering the mosque requires purification for someone who needs to perform full abdest. However, this is not considered an intentional act of worship. Therefore, prayer cannot be performed with tayammum taken for this purpose. Reading the Qur'an by memory is a worship for a person without wudu, but its performance is not dependent on wudu. It can be performed without wudu. Prayer cannot be performed with ablutions made with the intention of reciting the call to prayer, performing the call to prayer, visiting graves, burying the dead, responding to greetings, or doing a good deed. 204 tayammum is performed with something that is clean in every respect, such as soil. That is, tayammum is performed with things of the earth, such as sand, gravel, HORASAN, plaster, on which nitrogen monoxide filth has touched. Also with stones such as marble, tile, brick, ruby, emerald, ZEBERCET, TUTYA, and coral. Or with soil that is wet or burnt. Or with materials that are mostly a mixture of soil, rock salt. Or a wall coated with mud can also be used for tayammum. It is not necessary for these to have dust on them. However, tayammum cannot be performed with mud until it dries. This is according to Imam Abu Yusuf. According to Imam Azam, If there is fear that the time will pass and the mud contains more soil than water, ablution can be performed with mud. Ablution can also be performed with ashes produced by burning wood and grass. With metals such as iron, gold, silver, and other metals that melt, change shape, and soften, as well as pearls, glass, fabric, clothing, and animal skins. This is because they are not considered to be of the earth. However, if there is a certain amount of dust on them, then tayammum may be performed on them. Additionally, due to the soil on them, minerals such as gold, silver, and copper in their raw form can be used for tayammum. According to Imam Abu Yusuf and Imam Shafi, tayammum is performed only with soil. According to Imam Malik, tayammum is permissible with soil and sand, as well as with grass, trees, and snow. According to Imam Ahmad ibn Hanbal, tayammum is performed only with clean soil that is dusty, unburned, and not stolen from another. It cannot be performed with sand or other substances. 205. The condition preventing tahrim must have ended, just as ablution cannot be performed before blood has stopped flowing from any part of the body. Tayammum cannot be performed either. 206. Things such as dried dough and fish scales on the skin that prevent rubbing must be removed. Otherwise, the ablution will be performed over the obstacles on the face and arms. 207. Tayammum should be performed by placing the palms of both hands twice on a clean, earth-like substance. However, someone else can perform tayammum for a person who intends to do so. 208. Tayammum is performed with both hands or with something that can replace them. Using all or most of it, therefore performing tayammum with only 2 fingers is not permissible. However, one hand may be used to wipe the face and the other hand to wipe the arm. In this case, one hand is struck again on the ground and the other arm is wiped. A person who is disabled and cannot use water, if they have nitrogen monoxide assistant, performs tayammum by rubbing their face and arms on the ground. A person whose hands and arms have been cut off performs tayammum by rubbing only their face on the ground. If this person has a wound on their face, they perform prayer without performing tayammum. 209. The face and arms must be completely wiped. Every part of the face must be wiped. Items such as rings and bracelets must be removed or moved from their places. According to another opinion, it is sufficient to wipe most of the organs. Not wiping 1/4 of the area does not invalidate the ablution.